I was born in Minnesota, homeless, and it went downhill from there. My family lived in a car in Fridley, Minnesota, when I was born in 1980, and my family decided that it would be too cold to try to survive the winter in Minnesota, so they decided to go try to find a warmer climate, and that's how we ended up down here in Denver. When we made it to Gilpin County, we ended up staying in the Gilpin County motel, and we couldn't afford to live anywhere else, so they let us stay in the pantry. There was a fire, and we ended up having to move out of the hotel. We ended up in a little pump house shack next to the river. In the pump house was my younger brother, Donnie, who was 3 at the time, myself, my older brother, my older sister, my mom, and my dad. The day after we moved in, Donnie and I were outside playing in the back, and I bent down to pick up a really big rock, and I couldn't get it. It was stuck in the mud, and it was much larger than my 4-year-old self could carry, so I turned around to ask Donnie to help me pick it up so that we could throw it in together, and he was gone. And I looked around for him, and I couldn't find him, and I felt something at my feet. So I looked down, and I could see his hand coming out of the river. I grabbed him, but unfortunately I couldn't hold on to him, and he slipped out, and we found him a couple days later under some logs a few miles downriver. Right after my brother died, we were taken by our grandmother, and she told our parents we would stay with her for a couple of days, maybe a week at most. But she sent us to Florida to live with an uncle out there, and we suffered some abuse and neglect out there, and it kind of compounded the way that I felt about the guilt that I carried, because I had already felt like I had let down one sibling, and now here I had my older brother and sister being abused and neglected, and there was nothing I could do about it. And while we were out there, I felt completely helpless. And so when we finally managed to get home, back to Colorado, it was, I'd promised myself, that I was 5 when we came back, that I would protect them. And when we came back, not only did I have my older brother and sister, but I had a new baby brother as well. My younger brother was in a walker, and he rolled into the sun and got some pretty severe sunburn, and Child Protective Services decided it'd be best to remove the 3 older kids from the home. So my older brother and sister went to live with a foster family and sent me to live in a home with a bunch of boys, just another place I kind of got lost. The most impactful thing that happened to me positively in that time, a caseworker came to visit me, and that was just this huge transformative moment, because it was the first time in my life she picked me up, and she had a little black sedan, and she drove me down the mountain to go to McDonald's. And we listened to some music, and I remember the music that was on the radio when we were there, or driving down. I remember the cassette tape that she had in the thing. It was just this moment solidified, because it was the very first time I ever remember anyone asking me how I was. And I remember this 22-minute journey being one of the most transformative things in my life, because it gave me hope that somebody could actually care about me, and that I could be important, and that what I wanted and what I needed actually mattered to somebody. And then we moved, when I was 11, out to Montbello, and that would have been early 1992. It was tough. I was either getting beat up in the house or getting beat up out of the house. So at least at the time, I thought the abuse inside the house would be better, because I didn't think my brother would ever kill me, where I didn't know about being outside. So it was a really rough time. I was stabbed a couple of times. I was shot at once, beat with bats. I got my head cracked open by a crowbar once. But luckily, when I was almost 16, we managed to get out of that neighborhood and move back up to North Glen. I met who would be the woman who would become my wife, and then my ex-wife. And we were 16 when we started dating. She was my first actual girlfriend. And even though I was the caretaker for my younger brother and younger sister, and my parents To complicate matters, as sometimes we do, my girlfriend got pregnant when we were 16, and we had my daughter Brittany when we were 17. And so she came, my girlfriend and Brittany came to live with us in our tiny little apartment, and so I kind of just became the emotional support and caretaker, financial support for everybody. It was a lot to take on at 17 years old. Like a miracle, a friend of mine said, "Oh, I'm being sworn in tomorrow for CASA." When I found out about the program, the first thing I thought was, this could have saved my life. This could have made everything easier. Because instead of having that 22 minutes, I would have had somebody that's there all the time. Somebody that, if I needed them, I could call. If I was in a situation that I didn't know how to get out of, I would have somebody to tell. I would know that there was one person that was dedicated to my safety. Because I didn't have that. I had that for 22 minutes and it changed my life. So what would it have been like having that all the time? I'm Kyle, and I'm a CASA volunteer.